Oh, man, my word, what a ridiculously hard day. Thankfully, I can relax with a lovely cup of coffee. I know what you're all thinking. You love caffeine. You love coffee. You love pre-workout. It is the greatest thing that has ever happened to you in your entire life, and I support you in that. I support you in all decisions where you are looking for more love in your life. However, recently, I, Simon the Bored A-hole, I gave up caffeine. I gave up coffee. I gave up pre-workout. I gave all of these things because I was experiencing a bunch of side effects. We talked about the video a couple of weeks ago, how it almost killed me, which it did. We'll get into more detail in a second in case you haven't seen that one, or please do go back and watch it. But now that I've stayed off it, I was going to just give it a couple of weeks, but I felt so much better without any of it. I was like, man, I'm now experiencing so many positives and I'm experiencing so many benefits from dropping it that I feel the need to sit down here and basically preach for a little bit, although you should never preach, it's really, really bad. And so you can get my experience of this. I'm not saying you should give it up. I'm not saying you're going to experience these things. But after sitting down and researching it, you really do learn a lot about caffeine, where you're like, how the hell is this just sold over the counter? It's like some of the stuff you can buy in stores like Holland & Barrett and nutrition shops. You're like, I don't think we should just be doing this, but we are. So yeah, here's 5 incredible things that happened to me when I gave up caffeine, one of which is that I fell more in love with Gerald the fitness mascot. Number 5 is, yes, my heart stopped going nuts. Now, this was really concerning me for a while. I wasn't even taking up that much caffeine. Beforehand, people went, oh, you were taking in loads. Like, I really, really wasn't. If we want to be conservative with the amount of caffeine that's in a standard cup of coffee, we can say 100 milligrams, right? And I actually think it's a lot more than that, but we'll say it's 100 milligrams of caffeine. Most people, on average, looked it up, have 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day. So this one will go 5. That's 500 milligrams of caffeine right there, right? There's a lot of caffeine. If you then add in a pre-workout, which usually minimum has 250, but with the Phil scoop says to have 500, that's 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. And most people are actually fine with that. Now, registered bodies say that you shouldn't actually take in more than 400 to 500, but I know people that are taking 4 to 5 cups of coffee a day, and they're having pre-workouts, they've got no problems whatsoever. So it really does come down to the individual. I was just taking 500 to 600, and it wasn't even for that long a time. It was 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks tops. But I wanted to see what was going to happen, because I've always struggled with caffeine. Every time I reintroduce it back into my diet, I break out in spots, especially on my body. In a way, I'd rather think I'd have them on my face. Well, it's an either or. But the point is, I always put it down to my cortisol levels, my stress hormone going up, which of course that would happen because when you drink caffeine, it sends your adrenaline nuts, so cortisol levels will rise. So I thought, so many people tell me there's no way that's true. Even though I thought it was, I thought another cool example for a video would be to reintroduce caffeine at a high level and then see how my body operates. And what actually happened is I started to get mad heart palpitations. Like super, super mad heart palpitation, which also ties into everything that we've just said, your adrenal gland, etc., etc. But it was kind of terrifying, especially because at first I was an absolute moron, an absolute numpty, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I mean, you think that I would have done, but you don't at first, and it was absolutely terrifying because, of course, it was. When you have a heart that's going like a good rave, and then all of a sudden it's going, it's like, okay, this is not what I want in my life, and that leads to breathlessness, and it leads to me going to a doctor and thankfully figuring this stuff out. But that is what it can do, and I would have loved it. Maybe not now, but years ago especially, if somebody looked down a camera lens and told me this. And I'm not saying, once again, do not just give up caffeine because I've said this, but if you do increase it or you do go on a pre-workout, you've never done it before and you're brand new at the gym, make sure that you treat it like a drug is a little bit extreme, but it is a drug. Never forget, just because you can buy something over a counter and it's quote-unquote legal doesn't mean that when you put it into your own system, you are going to act in a normal way, right? Anything can be dangerous depending on the proponents around it. So yes, I'm absolutely overjoyed I don't have to go through that anymore. Number 4 is far more pertinent to this channel because my gym pumps came back. Now that sounds very strange, and I know it's going to send people nuts in the comments because I know what people are like, but I am absolutely convinced that I'd overstimulated myself, which is something that can happen, especially from pre-workout. There is something called stim dick, right? Don't like talking about it, but it's true. I'm actually not referring to this. Thankfully, my penis was working fine. However, stim dick, type into Google when you're not at work, obviously, is when you overstimulate yourself to such a degree your penis stops working. Because obviously, get an erection is just blood flow, and you have sent so much blood around other places in your body, your adrenal gland is worn out. Is worn the flip out, and once you trying to get around, it's like, dude, I ain't got anything left for you. So when you're hungry, your penis is basically hungry. You stole everything away from it. But something else that can happen, or at least I so believe, and there are studies to back it up, but I know you can find a study for everything, is that because you are so overstimulated, when you try and get a gym pump, you just can't because, again, your adrenal gland is absolutely worn out. And I found this in the gym. I remember texting my girlfriend. I was like, I'm struggling to get a pump in the gym, which is strange because I'm taking pre-workout, right? And one of the reasons I want it is because it gives you an amazing pump. And as soon as I had given up the caffeine and as soon as my body had balanced out, which again is hell on earth if you've ever done it. Again, I only introduced a lot of caffeine for a couple of weeks, but even trying to come off that was a nightmare. I was exhausted, I was having headaches, I was bloated, so on and so forth. And then when I got past the other side and I leveled out, everything was okay. But my gym pumps also came back. And do you want to know what happened after that? I started enjoying the gym a lot more. Like, DOMs aren't a massive thing, and you don't actually probably need to get a gym pump all the time, but it's one of the reasons we go. It's fine. You look in the mirror and you look twice the size and it puts a smile on your face. And that gives you the motivation, the dedication to keep going. And I was actually really concerned about how they'd gone away. You know, I'd start going down rabbit holes and wondering, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. Maybe I'm dying. Maybe I have to start paying for my funeral, even though that makes no sense because if you die, why would I worry about money? But brains do funny stuff. So, you know, if you are experiencing any of these, it could just be that you're taking in too much caffeine, maybe worth a shot. And number 3 is that, yes, my skin cleared up. I don't give a crap. This is going to send people mad in the comments. I don't give two hoots. It's just me and caffeine, the relationship that we have. As soon as I start drinking it, I get spots, mostly on my chest and mostly on my back, which absolutely sucks. So people look at it and go, what's he doing? It's like, man, I'm just drinking a flipping cup of coffee. What do you want from me? Blood? And I slice my vein open, I give it to them, and I realize I just made this video rated PG-18. But it can do that. It can do that. It's all down to your own endocrine system and what the hell's going on. You don't know what hormones it's interacting with and spiking off. Maybe it's raising this, maybe it's lowering that. But I do know every single time I've on it, my spots come back, and every time I'm off it, my spots go away. And in terms of turning this into a little bit of a vlog, I was bullied horribly at school because I had spots everywhere. I mean, well, on my face, which actually, going back to what we talked about earlier, is much better when you're in school because you can hide it. But as soon as you go to PE or physical education, as it's called in America, and you're getting changed, and it's like a flipping, blood to a shark. All these kids are like, spy. You're like, man, I can't handle it. Just leave me alone. You go cry in the corner. I don't want anybody to cry in the corner. Now, back then, it wasn't to do with caffeine, but clearly I had a hormone imbalance or whatever. And that ties into, me putting caffeine in my system now. I really would rather this wasn't the case, by the way. I love coffee and I love pre-workout. I think it's like going on a super duper fun ride. But there are much worse things in the world to suffer from. So if this is mine, I'll take it. Number 2 is that I had more energy. And of course, we've kind of already addressed this. It's because I was wearing myself out. When you drink a cup of coffee, you turn yourself on. But if you're going to turn yourself on and you're going to lift yourself up to here, you have to have balance and you have to come back down here. And this is another reason I should have known this. When I first went on pre-workout years ago, I would take it and I'd feel on top of the world. But then I'd get in after my workouts and I'd feel absolutely depressed because I'd crashed. And that is something that caffeine can do to some people. Like I say, you put yourself in such a I'm ready to go position that eventually your body goes, well, I can't do this all the time. Like, the drug is now wearing off. I'm now going to throw you almost into a comatose state just to try and find, some level heading here. And that's a very, very real thing. So once I got past all the side effects of coming off caffeine, I felt so much better. I felt so much happier. I had so much energy. My gym sessions were better, as we already discussed. And you wouldn't think that, would you? You wouldn't think that given that caffeine is a stimulant. But your body, the human body, is the most nuts thing on the planet. You could find a study where 7 billion people minus one took this one drug and, went in this one way, and you are the person that went the other way. That can happen. I mean, it sucks to be you, but it's just the truth. You've always got to be aware of it. Number 1 is that I felt less stressed because, of course, my cortisol levels came down. It meant that I was sleeping better. It meant that I just felt better in myself. It meant that I was a nicer person because when you're stressed, obviously you're not going to be as nice. That's just the truth. That's just the way of it. Cortisol is one of these hormones that I know it gets called stress, and stress has kind of had this new definition attached to it, right? Stress can be about one of 32,000 things. But if you are keeping your cortisol levels high all of the time, your body's just not going to be able to rest. It's not going to be able to relax. And then you're not going to be able to grow because you're not going to be able to recover properly, especially if you're not sleeping. And sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night is hard enough as it is. So, the last thing you want to do if you're going through a bad time in your relationship, with your family, at work, whatever, is overstim yourself with caffeine and beverages and who knows what else, and then make yourself feel like crap. I think that's the key, right? A lot of people, I would assume, drink coffee because that's just what humans do these days for some reason. Never used to be a big thing in the UK. Got big in America and then came over. We all used to drink tea, like, toffee. If you're really struggling with some stuff is what I mean. Don't ignore the basics, right? Don't ignore the basics. It could just be as simple as just cutting that out of your life or just cutting down. You don't have to go from 500 milligrams to nothing. You can go to 250, 300, 150. You choose what's right for you. But if this makes one person stop that have been going through some stuff and it helps, then the video was worthwhile. I have no idea how any video is going to do anymore. It's like a crapshoot. Some do really well and I'm happy. Some do don't well and I cry in my sleep. But caffeine and coffee and pre-workout, absolutely awesome. Huge advocate for them within moderation. You don't need to go crazy. And from now on, I'll probably have one from here to there because, again, I like the taste. But otherwise, you can call me Coffee-Free Chris. Even though my name is Simon. There you go, 5 incredible things that happened to me when I gave up coffee. Nobody will believe it, but you know what? I don't care. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, hit the bell, ding, ding. Check in the description. There's a bunch of stuff in there that you can help support me should you so wish. What else do you do? That's it. Nothing. Subscribe. I said that, but that's the most important one. Subscribe. The number going up is like having joy injected into your face. Thanks as always for stopping by. I'll see you again soon.